And we're live. It's been a while since I've done a live in a car, but I am in a car because I am going to see the Dear Evan Hansen movie tonight. And it's kind of really close to when this live finishes up, so I figured that I would drop by Barnes and Nobles and check out some books, and then after this live, I'm going to go see Dear Evan Hansen. So super excited about that. I love the lighting in this car because it's just natural lighting. Whereas all my previous lives since I've moved to Richmond have been like in my dim lit apartment where I have to use all this crazy lighting to kind of make it look like I'm not living in a bat cave. But we will go and get Nimade on. I'm super excited. We've done one before, but it was an amazing live, so you gotta do more. Hello.
Hey,
How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Trying to
I
get
just
some spot.
I just got some like hot tea so that like my voice doesn't like just disappear on me. My voice
Oh,
has
has it
kind of
been
been
going
going
in and
in
out?
and out.
Have you been sick?
Yeah. Not really. Like I had like a little bit of a sore throat, and I think that was just because like I was really talking a lot because I tend to do that.
Yeah. Uh,
But but I've tried
uh,
to like prevent that from happening. So I put lots of honey in some cinnamon tea.
that's a good idea. I get that too, because same problems in talking so much. And then I also feel like allergies have been really up lately. And then it just rains. So like today I've had this terrible sinus headache all day. For some reason, when there's like a lot of rain, like the pressure gives me these nasty sinus headaches. So that hasn't been fun.
It'll get you.
Hmm.
So I know that we've done a live before, and we kind of picked a topic to talk about on today's live, but I still wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself for people who might not have seen the other episode so that they know what you're doing as well, because I know that you're doing a lot of things very similar to this.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for having me again. I love our chats. My name is Nimade, or That African Butterfly. And as you mentioned, I've done lives with him before, and you've been on my channel before on Sundays. I do Self Love Sundays, where I just talk about like the journey to self love and self growth and all of that. Oh, is that a workbook?
Yeah,
Do you just
I
get it
just
today?
got it.
Perfect
Yeah.
timing. Perfect timing. So I talk about like that self-love journey, and on Tuesdays I talk about mental health and mental illness, and then I do like a different host of topics in between. Just whenever someone has something interesting and I want to be nosy, I ask if they want to be on my live, so I can ask them all the questions. So I enjoy it, and then on YouTube I do like a vlog because I'm on a perpetual weight loss journey. So I have a vlog about that. And then I have a new series called Bold, Black, and Addicted to Bravo, where we talk about like life stuff, but through the lens of Bravo, which I really like because I feel like I love Bravo. But like a lot of people do recaps and like, retellings of stuff. But I like talking about like life stuff. And sometimes it's hard because you don't necessarily like want to gossip about people in your life. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I love reality TV is that it's so universal. Like everyone can like get on the topic. So like when we're talking, like we talked about like mother-daughter relationships. I did one on friendships, one on like ride or die relationships. It's nice having like a common person we can talk about for those examples without really talking about someone. So I enjoy that. So
Yeah.
that's really my baby right now. Oh, and I have National Plus Guide for all things plus positive. So those are my main focus right now.
That's that's so many things on your plate. And like I've told so many people when it comes to like when you see people doing things like this, like that's a lot of work. And like if that's
It
not
is.
your
Oh, I also
full-time
have a
job,
full-time job. Yeah,
I
it's a
was
lot
gonna
of work
say,
because all of that, like none of that includes my full-time job, which takes up 40 hours a week. Yeah.
yeah. But like I think that the nice thing about creating those types of spaces is like if you don't see it, and you're the type of person that can create it and run it and give it time and love, like that
Hmm.
creates such like a beautiful space on the internet because a lot of times we feel like we're the only ones maybe in our community or in our area that kind of feels a certain way about like talking about Bravo shows. Like
Yeah.
there might be other people online doing it, but there's only you out there that can do it the way that you do it, and I think that that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's so funny that you said that because I've been I try to do like Thursday talks on my page where I talk about like just different things that are on my mind. And I was writing down topics the other day, and that was one of them was that people need to like realize that everyone has their own special sauce. Like it doesn't matter if everyone does the same thing because no one can do it like you. And not everybody likes the way someone does something. So even if someone's like great at it, there's still going to be people who don't agree. And there's still going to be people who don't like the way that person does it, but they might like the way you do it. You never know. So I'm always like, just go after what you want. Like it doesn't matter like what the market is out there. Nobody has one favorite anything in a category. They have categories of favorites. So there's room for you to be within that category of that person's favorite.
Yeah, I
Plus,
think that go for it.
no, I was just gonna say like plus you'll find like people often want to like have competition, but I feel like you get so much further with collaboration because people tend to like kind of the same things. Like I talk about like self-love and positivity. You talk about so like when you have guests, I'll tune in and check out their page, and most of the time it's people I want to follow because we're all kind of like in the same thing. So I'm always like collaboration is so much better.
Yeah. I always tell people like when it comes to the things you love and you're passionate about, like let your freak flag fly because like if you're not telling the world what you love and what you're passionate about, you're not going to find people that like celebrate that with you because I think that a lot of us if we like or enjoy something that the people around us, maybe family or close friends, don't like, we almost feel like we're an outcast. Whereas if instead of feeling like an outcast, you were proud of it and shared it with the world, you would realize that there's a lot more people out there that will celebrate you because you don't want to spend your life walking through life feeling like an outcast when there's two lanes over where you would be celebrated and loved for being exactly who you are instead of pretending to be something you're not.
Yes. And you already know that that's a huge soapbox for me because people do all the time and it drives me crazy. Like just be, and I get it because we've all done it and we've all been conditioned to like want to fit into certain boxes, but like stop trying. Like figure out your own box and then find the people who vibe on your wavelength. And it's like, it makes you so much happier because you're not constantly second guessing yourself, wondering stuff. And then also like those people are breathing life into you. Not that you should surround yourself with yes people, but do know the difference between people who can like see your vision and support it and give you like constructive critiques and those who just can't see it and so they're like bringing you down. So I'd say like just do your thing and don't worry about the opinions of others and like just follow really what makes you happy.
Yeah. I was telling my friend Meg, because we've been working a lot together this week on some business plans for both of us, but I was telling her that it's really hard to exist in a world where you're an entrepreneur, you're a person with ideas, you're a person with passions, but you are surrounded by people who don't understand that at all. And I was like, be careful wasting too much energy trying to get those people to understand you
Right.
when you could just make a shift. You don't have to end friendships or completely like move out of where you're at, but be aware that there are some people that you can speak about certain things and they will
Yes.
celebrate it with you. And then there's some people that maybe that's just your drinking buddy or watching Disney movies together buddy. It's
Mhm.
not the person that's going to celebrate your like achievements with you because I was in that for a really long time where I got to a point where I didn't even celebrate anything anymore that I achieved because I felt like all my friends felt like I was rubbing it in my face
Yeah.
or in their face, and it started to make me not even enjoy celebrating any achievements I ever made in life, and I realized that I had to shift really hard for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And it's unfortunate that that happens. And it is really important to realize, like, sometimes you have to put friends and people in your life in certain lanes. It's actually why I'm not a fan of unsolicited advice. I hate it. I can't say that. And the main reason why, though, is because you know how people will like tell you something negative and then be like, well, I'm just telling the truth. And my thing is, I didn't ask you for it. Don't tell me because I may not care about your opinion in that status of my life. You know what I mean? Like maybe I know you're someone and this is something that I feel like, especially a lot of creatives we deal with, that we can see things. And it took me a while to realize that I see things in a way that's very different than how other people see them. And I didn't even realize until like I was shopping with a friend once and I was like, oh, this would look good with blah, blah, blah. She's like, your mind works so interestingly. And I'm like, everyone doesn't just like put things together like that. Like you don't walk into a room and instantly know how it should be decorated or see a couple of items and instantly put together an outfit in your mind. She's like, no.
Yeah.
But the problem is because everybody can't see like that, whether it's like decorating a room or creating a show or doing whatever, not everyone has the capability to say like, oh, I can't see it, but I still support you. And instead what they'll do is say like, I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if that's going to be successful. And now they're raining on your parade just because they can't see it, which is why, like you said, it's important sometimes to know where people are. And because of that, like I know who to ask certain things, not necessarily because I want a yes, but because I know they can like at least see what I'm talking about or kind of understand it. So like when Joe Schmo on the side, whose opinion I didn't ask for, gives me negative opinion, I'm like, there's a reason I did not ask you your opinion. It's because I know it's not going to fit in here or I don't value it in this particular area of my life. So I'm always on people to like give opinion when people ask you because sometimes there's a reason that they don't ask you that. And I wanted to touch on something that you said earlier too about like the importance of like speaking out because other people may need you to as well, so that you don't feel like so alone. And it's so cheesy, but it's like one of the things I love about TikTok. Like I love when I go on it, it's so cheesy, but I love when I go on it and I see like a really like nerdy person or like a really like, you know, like kind of awkward person, but who has like a lot of followers and stuff for doing their nerdy thing. And it just makes me so happy because I feel like before forums like social media and TikTok and stuff, like that's probably a kid who would be in like a small town, being a nerd, being teased, being whatever. But because of social media, he was able to get online, find his tribe. And I'm sure now all the kids at his school are like, oh, he's so cool. But before, you know that that person would have been picked on for being like the nerdy computer guy. And even though we all know those people grow up to be like the successful people, high school and stuff is still usually pretty rough for them. Even like we all love actors and celebrities, but we pick on theater kids. Like, who do you think becomes actors and celebrities most of the time? You know what I mean? So I just like, I love that social media gives you that space to really find your village, especially if you grow up in an area where like your village is not the people who are literally in your village. You sometimes have to expand out of that to find that. But I love that that is available. And that's why it's also so important to use your voice if you can, because you never know who needs to hear it.
Yeah. I saw a quote, and there's tons of people that say this, but I absolutely love when someone says like, when I realized that I needed to stop wasting so much of my energy to try to blend in and just allow myself to naturally stand out, because I was born to stand out in this way, because
Mm,
society makes us believe that we should fit in. And growing up as a teenager, no matter what like minority group you're in, no matter
yep.
what social group you're in, like you are told like you want to fit in, you want to be a part of the cool kids, you want, but like you said, like celebrities and a lot of people who do well off were the ones that didn't fit in any type of way in school. And I think that it's sad that a lot of people that I saw that were fitting in now, like they don't really have anything going for them, because fitting in never really moves you towards like success or uniqueness or standing out later in life, because you blended, you
Mhm.
dulled yourself. And I think everyone on this planet has the ability to stand out, but they're too scared to stand out, especially I think once you've been accepted into the crowd or the in crowd. I think it's really hard to step away from that and realize that you're going to lose some of those people, because they don't want you to leave that. They want you to stay in that in crowd, because that's like a safety bubble, that I
Mhm.
think is dangerous for anyone's future, trying to fit into anything like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that it's hard because, like you said, we're told to fit in, and we're sort of like given the blueprints on how to follow life, and we all think like if we follow it this way, then things will be happen, and I things will make you happy. And I feel like on one level, I'm really it sounds weird, but like I'm really blessed that there's things in life that force me outside of that comfort bubble. Like I would like to think that I'm free spirited and free thinking enough that I would have found my way here anyways, but I can also recognize within myself that there's a lot of ways where like if it had been easier for me to blend in, I wouldn't have had to change the way I thought about certain things. I wouldn't have had to tap into myself certain ways. So I'm, kind of glad that I had the struggles because, and I say that all the time, like all the things that I felt like made me different or made me other than or made me whatever are all the things now that I connect to people on. You know what I mean? Like because I felt different because of those things, I now use my voice to talk out about those things and realize all these other people felt super different and super alone too, and they were just waiting for someone else to speak up so they can say, hey, me too. And that's why it's important for people to speak up, because you never know who's waiting for you to be like, oh yeah, I went through that also, and like you said, it's hard to break out of when you find what you think is your tribe, right? But I think you also know, I think there's still a part of you, because even when I was like fitting in more, there was still a part of me that knew I wasn't like really happy. And I think that I don't know, I don't think there's enough emphasis on finding happiness in life. I think that we really, whether they mean to or not, life is really pushed on us as this narrative of you just deal with it, like it's normal to be miserable 5 days a week and only be happy on the weekends. And it's normal to only have a few happy life moments and the rest of the time you just drudge along. And I mean, maybe, but I refuse to live that world. So I'll keep working on finding my own path towards happiness. I just think that a lot of people accept that that's what they've been told, so that's life. And there are people who live like 9 to 5 lives and it's not a drudge for them, right? Like they're happy with their life, they're content with their life. And I think that that's awesome. But there are also those people who are just kind of miserable with it, but don't really have the strength to break out of that. And I just want to like shake them and be like, do it. It's scary at first, but it feels so, so good.
Yeah. One thing that I learned, and kind of going off of what you said earlier about like you being thankful that there were things about you that made it harder for you to fit in. Like I've told so many people, like, I'm so thankful that I am gay. And I think that that's hard for a lot of people who are still processing coming out and accepting themselves for that. But
Mhm.
being gay made me different, and it made me realize that being different is not bad,
Right.
and it's something that you have to grow through. And moving back to my hometown and being surrounded by people who fit what was accepted, and seeing how far I've had to grow as a person, like personally with my mental health, with my self-love and understanding, versus people who society didn't tell them they had to change or grow or
Yes. And
become
you notice
better.
that.
They were
Hmm.
just like, well, this is how I am. And if they've never moved to another place, which I've moved so much that I learned that you have to adapt. Like, you don't get to tell the world how to be, like, you have to learn and adapt. And the more people you know, the easier that is. But when I
Hmm.
moved back to my hometown, I was like, wow, you high school is still here. You haven't changed since high school. You're still
Yeah.
living in that like phase of your life where like you think that being a popular kid in high school still holds some type of like title in our adult life. And I was like, I was thankful that being gay made me say, well, I don't fit this like normal or what is supposed to be. So therefore, I'm going to create my new normal, my new supposed
Hmm.
to be life. And
Yeah.
in that journey, I've like learned things about myself and learned so many new things just from connecting with everyone, because I think everyone I meet teaches me something new about myself. And I'm really
Hmm.
thankful that that path was created for me, just because, like, I don't know what I would do if I was just, like, still in my hometown believing that, like, who I was is, like, there was no growth necessary. I was already accepted just because I existed.
Yeah. It's amazing how your like the people around you really impact the the way you see things and the way you walk through life. Like for my 30th birthday, like I love my birthday picture from my dinner because it's literally like, I feel like it's just so reflective of me. Like there's different races, there's different ages, there's different, nationalities, different sexualities, different political parties. And it's like, but we're all just having a good time. And I feel like the person I am today is because of those friends. And it's because I'm surrounded by those people. And I really feel like life is, have you ever seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
I have not. That has been
Okay.
on a list of things I want to see, but I have not seen it yet.
Well, basically, and I've seen it forever, so hopefully I'm saying it right. But basically, he wins like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and they're like, "Oh, how did you know?" And he has like a story for how he knew each answer. Not necessarily because he's super intelligent, but he just happened to have a life experience that allowed him to know the answer to those questions. And I feel like that really is life. You know what I mean? Like life is built up of your experiences, which is why like when people try to like look down on people for like not experiencing things or not being as intelligent, it's like, well, it's only based on what you need. Like what someone knows isn't necessarily indicative of their intelligence. It's indicative of like their life experiences and what they've come in contact with. Again, why I love social media, because you really can see anyone else's life that you want. Did you ever Snapchat? Did you ever go on
Yeah.
Snapchat? Okay. Well, for a while, and I think they might still do it, but they had like those maps, and you could click on the maps and see like the Snapchats of what was going on in that area. I would love to like go to concerts and like click, like if I knew there was a concert going on, I'd click on it and see all the Snapchats from that concert. Or like there was some event over in Europe, so I clicked on it so I could see everyone snapping at that event. Like we literally live in a world now where you can see other worlds. You can put yourself in the place of other people, and then there's tons of people like us who are like speaking on, lives, YouTubes, whatever. So even if you're stuck in like a small place, you can still expand your mind if you want to. So I feel like what we have right now is a lot of people who are choosing to still have willful ignorance because they don't want to expand their mind, because the availability is out there. It's not like before where it was like, oh, well, it's just us in our small bubbles. There's so many ways to expand your thinking. There's so many ways to learn about other cultures, see things through other viewpoints. And I think people just need to spend a little more time doing that.
Yeah, I think that you have to be taught and have that knowledge instilled to be curious of things that are different than you instead of
Mm.
rejecting difference. I think it's important because the Snapchat thing, I actually, like when everything was going down in the Middle East, like over in Pakistan, like they have Snapchat over there. When things
Oh,
were happening in Ghana, they have
yeah.
Snapchat. And I was kind of watching because seeing things through a citizen or a civilian's life in those places is very different than
Mhm.
what we see in the media.
It is.
And I think that it's kind of cool to kind of click on the map and view things. And since I've
I love
started
that you
like,
do that because I don't know anyone else who does that. I'm like, I'm such a
yeah,
voyeur, but I love
I was
doing that.
just
I love
showing
that
my
you do that.
friends. I was like,
Yeah.
look at these people just having a good time. Because I think sometimes people need to realize that, like, there are people in their 30s over there that are just doing exactly what I'm doing, just trying to get through life and have a good day
Mhm.
and, like, work on their mental health and, like, they're people. And I think that too often media detaches us from the fact that these are people. They're just
Yeah.
like us, that are the imagine those types of things happening where we are, like seeing that. I think it's important for people to realize that there's other humans everywhere on
Mhm.
this planet instead of
Yeah.
thinking of them as uh, people from Pakistan. Like these are humans, remember that.
Yeah, and I think that people do that a lot. And you're right, a lot of it is media where we detach ourselves from it and then we take away like the human aspect. And it's really important to remember that human aspect when you're, dealing with people or talking about other people. And like you said, the people in other places in the countries are a lot oftentimes just like us. So like as much as we talk about all the things that make us unique and make us different, they also are things that bond us to people because we're actually not that unique. We're actually not that different. Like, as much as I'm like a unique snowflake, it's also like I'm still not that unique. Like, there are people like me who have gone through the same things and are living through the same things. And so it's not easy, but you can find people to connect with, and you can find that those things that join us all, no matter like where you are. And I think that that's always really interesting.
Yeah, I like the snowflake analogy just because like uh all snowflakes are made of the same thing. They're different
Yeah.
shapes and sizes, but some of them have similar characteristics to other snowflakes, but none of
Mhm.
them are exactly the same. But they're all made out of H2O. Like
Yep.
there's not some that are like made out of other things. Some of them might have other chemicals that have attached to them because of their environment that they're coming down in. But at the end of the day, like they're all snowflakes, and I think that people like need to realize that. And one thing that I loved about what you were saying earlier about when you were shopping and your friends like, "Oh, you've got like how does your mind do that?" I love asking people when we're talking about something completely different and all of a sudden they go, "Oh my God, did you see this movie?" My brain I love to ask like, "How did you get from here
There to
to
there.
here?" And just
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh well, my sister and I traveled to that place, and we had a cat and a dog named this," and it's so
Yeah.
interesting to see the like from here to here point in people's minds. Sometimes you
Hmm.
just have to ask instead of going, "You're crazy," like that was so
Yeah.
off topic. Ask
Yeah.
the journey to that place because sometimes it's a really fascinating ride.
It is. It's really interesting, and I find like I've always been an inquisitive person. I'm using the word inquisitive now. I've always said nosy because I am, but I will say inquisitive. But I find like the more I talk to people, though, like the more I am, like the more I want to know, like, and I'm just like fascinated by people, and I just think everybody has a story, like everybody. And actually, one of my favorite things to do. Mostly I do it with my brother. I haven't really gotten other people to do it with me. Or I guess I haven't talked about it with other people, but I love to like, cause I don't know, like I make stories up in my mind sometimes. Like I'm a writer and I do stuff like that. It's like sometimes when my brother and I are hanging out, we'll just be like, all right, what's their story? And we'll just like look at random people and like make up whole scenarios about like, okay, they're on a date and they're talking about blah blah blah, or okay, this mother-daughter deal. Like, I don't know, I think it's just really funny because you know that even though you're just making up whatever, that that person does have some type of story. I feel like no matter who I have yet to meet anyone where I'm like, you're boring. You have no life story. You have nothing interesting. Like everybody has a story, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I met a lot of people who tell me that their life isn't exciting and it is boring, but with a lot of questions, and I'm just like you. I want to know more and more about people.
Hmm.
And some of the people who assume their life is so boring are some of the most interesting people.
Yeah,
It's just that they're seeing other people's lives, and because they're living theirs every day, they don't realize that they live a very unique and interesting life that's different than mine. And
yeah.
I think that that's important. That's one of my like things that I take a lot of pride in is being able to find those things in people and pointing it out and letting them know how special like that type of thing makes them as a person.
Yeah, because it really does. And I think that um, oh, I was just gonna say no, but like yeah, it makes them really special and it makes people interesting and unique. And I think people just a lot of times, especially with social media, because it's one of those good and bad things, right? But people often compare like their real life to someone else's like highlight reel. Like you see them doing like all this great stuff. I think it's also part of why like I overshare in my stories. Because like if you look at my page, you're like, oh, she's doing this interview, she's doing this thing, she's blah blah blah. But like in my stories, I'm like, oh, I'm a hot mess. I'm so upset. But I think it's important to like share that because like you see me have times where I get over it and I work through it. You see me sometimes where I give into it. And I think that that's all part of the journey. And it's not really so much because I think my life is that interesting. It's really not. I'm like here in my apartment all alone all the time. But I do think and I do recognize that me sharing, and I've had people say like me sharing makes them feel more comfortable to share when they're going through dark times or even like this week was a hard week for me. I just was going through it emotionally. And so I wasn't posting as much and I was just pretty like quiet. And like a few people reached out and they're like, I'm going through it too. So we were able to talk about it. And if I hadn't, been transparent about that and how I was feeling, maybe they would have never had, felt like they could reach out to someone to talk to about it. And I feel like sometimes it just takes one person and not that, like, oh, here I am on my horse. But it does take sometimes one person to like open those floodgates or start that communication. And I think that if you feel like you have it within you to be that person, you should. Not just for the helping of other people, which it does, but for yourself also. Like it's very therapeutic in a way to share yourself and do have people like connect with you and all that. So I'm always encouraging of people.
Yeah, I think that it's so important to watch the people that you like really like look up to in life and just watch how they navigate through life instead of asking people questions like how did you do this. Watch them, because I think
Yeah.
that a lot of us, we have acquired knowledge unknowingly, whether it's the people around us or just how we were brought up with our family. And when
Hmm.
you ask someone like how are you doing this, or how are you so happy all the time, uh, or how do you deal with struggles and it never looks like you're struggling ever, people don't understand that a lot of people don't have the answer for that. It's there. You just have to kind
Right.
of watch how people deal with it. Like, yeah, I struggle all the time. Like, I'm trying to
Hmm.
get like my full-time business off the ground to where like I can like afford to do all the things I want to do in life. And
Yeah.
there on a daily basis, like I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I'm stupid. I'm so crazy for thinking that I could do this. I'm not cut out for this. Oh my gosh. But then, like, I silence that. I'm like, but I've got to get work done. And I've learned that just doing on repeat, whether it's failing or succeeding, just keep doing it and
Yep.
don't let that voice in my head. And then surround myself intentionally with people who go, hey, like, that was one slip up. But look, you've got all this behind you that you've overcome and succeeded through. You're going to
Mm.
keep doing it. Just keep going. And I mean, I'm learning more and more as I self-reflect of things that I've picked up along the way, as well as when I communicate with other people and hear what they believe has made them successful. It makes me realize that, hey, my granddad taught me that since I was a
Yeah.
little kid. And I was like, that is useful information. And I think that
Hmm.
that's important for people to realize is we don't all understand how the events in our life have shaped us into the people that we are.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. And I think we don't also give enough credit to it. I think I was telling you in DMs the other day that I want to get into like consulting more and working with people through stuff more because I think a lot of times like when you work through things, you're just like, well, I'm just living my life, and it's not really until you talk to other people you're like, oh, well, I guess it's kind of impressive that I know that, or I guess I can talk to that. And I feel like I've been having more and more conversations with people who are like, that's so amazing, and I was like, really? It's just something I know. But I think we unfortunately tend to think that everyone knows what we know. And not necessarily in like a cocky way, but just in like a, they don't need to hear that. They've heard that so many times before. And then you say something and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never thought of it that way. You're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm bringing something to the table after all. So that's been huge for me is not assuming everyone knows what I know. And even if they do, not assuming that they heard it the right way or that someone explained it to them the way that I necessarily would. And I think that that's hard sometimes because oh, I know it sounds bad, but like I feel like sometimes, and maybe it's just me, but like motivational speakers and like life coaches, I feel like they get like a bad rep sometimes. And even with me, sometimes I'm like, because it seems like so much of them is about them, to be honest, right? And I think that you can really tell, and that's something that I've worked on with me, is I feel like you can really tell when there's a genuine, I'm doing this for other people. I want to help other people. I want to make other people better. And even when I look at the people who have been more like successful in that area of being motivating and being whatever, it's because they really put their energy into pouring into other people more so than being like, look at me, look at how amazing I am. It was like, how can I help other people? How can I make people achieve this? And people gravitated more to that. So I always try for me to make sure that that continues to be my purpose as well. Just because, like I said, I really just don't want to be that person. You know what I mean? Like some people, you're like, oh, they just like the sound of their voice. Like, stop talking. And I like live with the fear that that will be me. But I feel like as long as I keep my focus and I know like my intention of helping other people and making people feel included, especially since like my main goal is to help amplify other voices, like give other people room and space to talk. So hopefully I don't become one of those people roll their eyes at up. But
Yeah.
it's hard. But you know, like finding
I,
that line between like I want to do that, but I also don't want to be obnoxious and annoying.
yeah. I think that has a little bit to do with just like believing in yourself, because like I think that a lot of people believe in themselves, and then that can, I think if you ever wrap it into money, it can be really bad if you have a bad relationship with money. But I always tell people, like, when it comes to coaches, like, when we were little, like the little shape box that there's little blocks that are in different shapes, and then
Yeah.
you kind of are pushing it through. So I always say, like, the advice that life coaches give, like, this is stuff that philosophers have been saying for like centuries.
Mhm.
But when it comes to someone hearing it, maybe my ear hole is shaped like a star, and the information that you're trying to get me to hear is shaped like a butterfly, and it's
Yeah.
not fitting in there. But then someone who literally has the exact same information, but the way that they say it is shaped like a heart, it goes in and like is processed a different way. Because I've had tons of people try to teach me something, and I just could not understand it, because their wording was just shaped in a way that the like puzzle of my mind couldn't interpret it into useful information for myself. But when it came to someone who spoke my language, when it comes to all the things that have shaped me and filtered me into who I am today, somehow that person I was able to accept that exact same information from, just because they
Mhm.
tweaked it just the right way for me to understand and accept that knowledge. And it doesn't mean that your information's any less valid or different. It's just maybe it was wrapped with just the right story for someone to be able to hear it that way. Because I can now, after I've accepted information from one person, can now look back on the person who was trying to get the butterfly in there, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what she was saying. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm able to accept it in a way that I wasn't before I kind of got that information through my thick skull that I have sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think well, I think it's two things. I think it's A, someone presenting the message in a way that you hear, which is why I was saying earlier, like people have like different sauces. So even if someone else is doing or saying the same thing, still say it because you might present it in a way that someone else might take that they didn't hear before. So I do think it's that. But then I also think there's something to be said about it being the right time in your life, right? Like how many times have we heard something that because this was the right moment, it clicked for us. And we may have heard it tons of times before and other people say it, but it didn't align with our lives back then. We weren't in a place to really hear it. But now we're hearing it and now it makes sense. So I try to remind myself of that, like when I'm repeating stuff, because you never know if this is the time someone takes it in. And I think also, like what you said, life coaches aren't really saying anything like super new. It's all stuff that's been circulated before. But I think like that, honestly, for me is the difference between like a life coach or a consultant who I want to talk with versus like the ones who seem all about themselves, because I feel like there are those ones that like will regurgitate stuff like quotes and things and stuff like that and try to make it seem like they came up with this whole new philosophy and this whole new like meaning to life and things like stuff, and I find those people hard to connect with versus, oh, I heard this quote somewhere, I read this thing somewhere, or I was thinking this. Like, not that you need to, do a bibliography for everything you say, but there's difference between like, I feel like those of us who, like we're just going through life. Like I say it all the time. I don't really have the answers. I'm just figuring it out and I'm letting you figure it out while we're figuring it out together. And I think that that's different. I think that that can be motivational on its own level versus if I were to be like, oh, hello, everybody. My life is so together. And let me requote all these wonderful quotes and pretend like I came up with them on my own. I personally don't connect with that. I know there are some people who do because they love the facade of perfection. That's not over at my camp. At my camp over here, we are the camp
Yeah,
of realness, the camp of hot
yeah,
messiness. But,
yeah.
it's all about what people connect with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are people out there who will connect with someone who's very open about their own like journey, and then there are
Hmm.
some that will be very discouraged about hearing that someone else is still struggling. Some
Yeah.
people might, like my sister, she works with like children in bad homes and bad situations,
Hmm.
and she was talking about how a lot of her coworkers were very well put together, like suit, tie, like perfect hair, glasses. And a lot of the kids were very turned off by that because they looked at that as like someone that is not the same as them, someone who would not understand them as a person. Whereas they
Mhm.
saw her, a young girl with like her nose pierced, she's got tattoos, she openly talks about her mental health and her struggles, and they connected instantly with her. So I think that it's important for everyone to realize, like, that's why I tell people, like, if you want to work with me as a coach and we are not connecting, stop going forward with it. Like, go find a coach that you connect with, that you have those aha moments on a regular basis, because you don't need to work with someone that makes you feel like you don't have what it takes to get there. You want someone that you connect with, that your journeys align enough to where you're like, I've got it. I can make this work. And with this person's help, like, I'm going to move forward and get over whatever obstacles life has like put in my way. But like, everyone's journey is different, because I've had people come to me and they're like, how can I really work with you as a coach when you are so open about like all your failures and things that you aren't good at right now? And I'm like, I mean,
Honestly, that's also what stops me sometimes from pursuing it. I'm like, how am I going to coach people? I'm still figuring it out myself. But yeah, you're right. Some people do like seeing that reflection. I think people get motivated by different things. Like, I think some people are motivated by people who are, going through life the same journey as them. And some people only are motivated by people who have achieved what they want to achieve. So they don't have respect for people going through the same thing. And to each his own with whatever motivates you. But that's why it's important to just put yourself out there as the real you. I just feel like the more, and I don't know if it's like an age thing, a self-love journey thing, but the more you realize like how different people are and how like there's just no reason not to be yourself. Like if I could give the world a message, there's just no reason not to be yourself, because you can find people that connect with you. And when you realize like how much of your time you spent and your energy trying to fit in, like you said, like when you realize how much of your time you try trying to fit that circle into that butterfly mold, when really you just needed to find a butterfly mold, like you are literally wasting your time and wasting your happiness. Because when we talk about like life being happy, it doesn't mean that you're like champagne on the yacht and like blah blah blah. Like maybe that's happiness for you and that's fine, but maybe it's like a quiet, content happiness. Maybe it is having like a wife and kids, and maybe it's like living in an RV traveling around the world. But like until you take the time to really like figure out like what your voice is telling you and what makes you happy outside of what makes everyone like what everyone is telling you to, you don't really ever find that happiness. And then you're constantly having that like discontentment and that sadness. And especially for me, because I do deal with depression and anxiety, it is so crucial for me to find my happiness in my happy moments. Because I never know, like this week, like where I went from, like I was so happy last week. Last week was such a good week. So like to just be plummeted into like, this week, it was not fun for me. But I make sure that I'm constantly, even like little things, like that's my main thing right now, is really creating a life that I love. Even like like I got a new sofa and it's so dorky, but I changed the legs on it because I wanted one that matched the room more. But like now every time I look at my sofa legs, I smile. And it's such like a stupid little thing, but it makes me happy. And I think like just little, like it's a dumb example, but you get what I'm saying. Like just finding the little things to make your life happy on the daily is what will help you, especially if you deal with any type of mental illness. It's what helps you get through those bad days, is knowing that you have those good days coming up. But if you're having like drudgery days of like blah, and then you sink into depression, like what are you really looking? And I've been there before, where my days were all like this, and then I'd slip into a depression. It's like, well, what am I looking forward to? Going back to the drudge, like this is awful. Versus now it's like, oh, life's pretty good. And I go into like a depression zone and it stinks, but I know that there's a peak. Like I'll know I'll climb out of it and get back there. And I think that that's really just important to like just find, because so many people say like find your happiness, be happiness, but I don't think enough people say like take the time to figure out what your happiness is. Don't just assume your happiness is what everyone else says your happiness should be. It might be completely different for you.
yeah, I think that a good life coach, anyone who is coaching someone, you're not telling anyone anything. You're not giving information. You're not like directing. Like I saw someone in the comments that said the counselor told them that the way that they feel is wrong and that it should be the complete opposite. Like a
Mhm.
good counselor, a good coach, all they do is ask questions because
Mhm.
every single human being has the answers to their own happiness. It's all about asking yourself the right questions to uncover that. So like for me, like I know certain things that stress me out. So I ask myself like how can I avoid that? How can I
Yeah.
avoid things that stress me out? I examine the days when I am in a super high mood and I'm just loving life. I examine that and ask, why was I happy there? Was it because I
Yeah.
was out in nature? Was it the people that I was around? Was it the conversation being had? Was it the weather? Like, all of those things are questions we should be asking ourselves and dig down deep and figure out every moment that makes you happy because those are the things that you do have control over. Like, hey, this friend really offsets my mood every single time we talk. You know,
Mhm.
we're going to push you to the side because my energy is really important this week and I have a huge project and it's important that it gets done and I can't have my energy being hit by anything that I have control over. Versus, you know, life is going to hit us with unexpected things any day, any time. But like a good coach will only ask questions. Uh,
Yeah.
I I'm personally, because I'm an influencer and because I am a storyteller, I have to stop myself a lot working with clients from using my own stories to help people. Because at the end of the day, the way I have processed something will never help someone else. Like I always tell people, books, great, read them. Books are great, but realize that the whole book is not written for you. It is
Right.
written, and you take the pieces that will help you, just like when you watch someone's YouTube videos, their lives, and things that we talk about that help us. Take the small parts from this that will work for you and throw away the rest. Like,
Yep.
you have to know yourself. Always ask yourself questions every day. Like sometimes like drinking coffee like instantly makes me smile like
Mhm.
that. Like I sit there and I'm just smiling and it's like, why does that make me smile? And I'm like, well, I'm getting ready for a day. Like I am taking a step in a day where like sometimes doing the small things like getting coffee, getting a shower, getting to work on time, like those things, it's it's a natural easy flow. And it's just
Mhm.
so important for people to realize that we have to ask ourselves, why was last week an amazing week? Why was this week not so much? What parts
Yeah.
can we control and what parts were out of our control? Because stressing about things that are out of our control, not worth it. Like,
Mhm.
accept that it happened and it sucked and move on and look at the things that can be changed. Put that in your toolbox as something that, okay, next time when I know I need a good week, we're going to weed out some of those things that made the week kind of start plummeting and rolling downhill.
Hmm. No, you're absolutely right. And that's the one thing I got from my therapist is spending so much time really self-evaluating. And we say it all the time, like, oh, people project, people blah, blah, blah. It's like, but why are you projecting? And you stop that projecting when you start doing more self-reflection. Like, why am I reacting to it this way? Like, and I do it all the time now. I'm very much, I don't know, I don't want to say self-involved, but like if I do have like a negative reaction to something, before I'm instantly like raw about that, I'm like, well, what is it triggering in me? Like, why am I having this reaction to something, especially if it's something that like doesn't really impact me? I think it's important. And then also, like you said, like finding the little moments of happiness along the way to make your day better and really like stop and figure out what makes you happy. And I've really been trying and working on creating a life like that for myself that's filled with the little things. And remembering, like, even it's so funny that you mentioned the coffee because I have that too. Like in the morning, where I'm like, my coffee. But like knowing that and making sure that it's a part of my day and making sure that I stop and feel the happiness that I feel in those moments. I think we rush through life and sometimes you just need to stop literally along your day and be like, oh, I feel good in this moment. Like this was a good moment. And then also realizing like the stuff that you can fix and change when you can fix it. And there is a level of grace and allowance for like mental illness and going through struggles. And I usually will give myself like a day or so to feel how I feel. And then I see if I can do anything to control and change it. So like this week, like I was down a couple days and I knew it was like my mental health. And so I was like, oh, I'm not going to do anything. Like, I just sort of like felt the grumpiness. And then I was like, I really don't want this to last. I don't want to keep going. So I normally will give it like a couple days, like I said, to feel how you feel. And then I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to come out of this? So like, I know that when my environment looks better, I feel a little bit better. So I'm like, well, let me clean. And I know that getting sunshine makes me feel better. So I was like, let me go outside. And when you're in, for me, especially with my depression, those are all things I don't want to do. Like, I just want to stay in bed and feel bad. But I'm like, I will continue to feel bad if I do not force myself to do those things. So I forced myself to do that. And then the next day I actually felt like a little bit better. And then like last night I forced myself to work out and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling better today. Because that's the other thing is sometimes as much as you should give yourself grace and allowance, you also need to know the times where you need to push past how you feel in the moment for the reward of how you will feel later on. You know what I mean? So like I know that, oh, I didn't feel like going outside and getting sun and I didn't feel like cleaning and I didn't want to work out. But I know when I do those things, I feel better. So while I gave myself a day to be like, I knew that if I pushed past the I don't want to do it and force myself to do it, that I would feel better later on, hopefully. And I do. I feel a lot better today. But it took a couple days of pushing past it. And usually what I'll tell myself in those moments is A, I'll feel better if I do it when I don't want to. And then B, I feel crappy already. Might as well feel crappy while doing something that will make me feel better instead of just feeling crappy for no reason. So that's usually kind of how I push myself to do those things when I don't want to.
Yeah, I think that it's so important for people to realize that like when it comes to our minds, when it comes to our brains, like there are chemical reactions that we like everyone's is different. And I think that it's important for people to realize that the more you observe yourself, don't ask the world if this is how I'm supposed to be feeling. Like milk might make me feel great and destroy someone else's stomach. That doesn't
Right.
mean that person should drink milk every day just because it worked for me. And I've told people like when it comes to your mental health, when it comes to your health in general, it's all tied in together. Your environment is tied into that. Like sunlight does chemically change your
Mm-hmm.
chemicals in your
The
brain,
vitamin D.
and like all of that, it's it's all plug and play, and it's you taking the time to understand yourself. I think too often, like when it comes to mental health, uh, doctors and psychiatrists and everyone prescribe medicine, but forget to say, this is here to help balance the chemicals, but here are some life-changing things like your lifestyle that you can change to kind of start to adapt to this new change that we're going to put into your system. Because
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people, like, if you have a significant other that says you're ugly, you're disgusting, I hate you, you're stupid, you're dumb, taking a pill does not make that go away. And
Right. Yeah.
you're going to still have those thoughts. Oh, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm dumb. Like if your environment like enforces that belief system, no matter how many like pills you take, that that is not going to change. Sometimes you have to take yourself and put yourself in an environment that creates a better space for you. Yes,
Yeah.
taking medication can help, but be aware that it's not magic. Like there are
Mm-mm.
things that could negatively impact you. Like and also be aware that like that's normal. Like if you day in and day out have your family or significant other or friends telling you that you're stupid, you're not worth it, you're not beautiful, that's that's normal for you to feel bad and not love yourself. Like that is not something that's wrong with you. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
something that's wrong with your environment, and
Right.
that's in your control to change. I know that it's not always easy. Like moving out like right now with the world and how the economy is like is hard for everyone, but like you have to take that moment and say, is it me or is it my environment? It's my environment. What are the teeny steps that I can take on a daily basis to make sure that I'm in a better place that is deserving of the person that I can be if I was in a space that I could thrive in?
Yes, yes, I love that. And it's so true. And I mean, on the topic of medication, first of all, I don't think you should take it unless you are doing therapy as well. Now, I take medication because I've been diagnosed with depression. And it took me a while to get on medication because there is such a stigma about it. And then I just finally had to be like, listen, because people forget that your mental health is dealing with an organ, it's your brain, right? So we talk about feelings, but it's still an organ. And my brain organ does not fire off the like the serotonin that I need to have like that, happiness level sometimes, or it dips or whatever the science is. But like, and so the medication helps. And I used to feel bad about it, but I'm like, no one ever tells me to feel bad about using my inhaler for my asthma. We get it, my lungs don't work, I need medication. Same thing with the brain. But what you said, like your environment is still super important, right? Like if my lungs don't work and I need an inhaler, but I'm smoking all the time, I'm not helping anything. So if your brain isn't firing off the serotonin you need, yes, you can take the medication, but if your environment is still bad, it isn't helping. And something that's really, really important is all the examples that you mentioned of the negative things that people would say. The problem is for a lot of people, that voice is themselves. That's the real issue. It's not even that they have their mom, their sister, their whatever. It's that the person in the mirror is telling them you're ugly, you're stupid, you're lazy, you're whatever. And they need to work on that within themselves and doing like that self-work and that self-love, whether it's with a coach or a counselor, and really just talking to themselves. Like my thing, because I would really get down on myself sometimes, especially when I'm going through it. Because I am normally like such a hard worker, motivator. So like when I'm not, I'm like, oh, you're so lazy. You're being such a slacker. It's not your depression. You're just lazy. And I have to be like, I would never talk to somebody else like that. I would never speak to someone like that. So why is it okay to speak to myself like that? And I really had to get to the point where like, and when I even start thinking like that, I stop it. Stop that thought, redirect it. And it's like a thing that I learned with my therapist, but it helps a lot. And a lot of people need to realize that that voice in your head that's telling you all those negative things, you need to squash it. You need to cut it out. You tell that voice to shut up, and you need to tell that voice to be more of a friend to you. I was just talking to somebody, and I was like, we don't let people talk crap about our favorite celebrities, our favorite movies, our favorite whatever, but we'll let them talk crap about us and like take it in, like the negative things that they are saying about us are valid, even though like you can't talk crap about Beyonce around me, but I'll cry if you say something mean to me about me. Like what the heck? Like we should feel about ourselves the same level we feel about these people we don't even know. Like we should have that love for ourselves. We should feel that other people shouldn't be able to talk about us. We should feel that if someone says something negative, like that's just their bad opinion, and we still hold value in ourselves the way we still hold value for like celebs and movies and stuff when other people talk bad about it. We don't let their opinions devalue that, so we shouldn't let other people's opinions devalue us. And I think a lot of people do, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think that when it comes to that negative self-talk, like it will feel so unnatural when you first make that shift over to speaking better about yourself in your head. Like it felt so fake when I was doing it. Like I was looking in the mirror and I was just like, you are worth it. Like you are doing great things. And like for me personally, like I was like, God, you're just lying to yourself. Like
Yeah,
that voice will try to combat that. But if you keep doing it over time and like you are you, you're only going to ever be you. So you might as well love yourself for everything that you are and realize that there are some things that you're going to have to learn to love despite society saying that it's an unlovable trait about you. But at the end of the day, like that trait and you as a person has gotten you through every single day that you've lived through so far. And that's an
yeah,
amazing trait to have. Like it is all part of your puzzle. And if you are missing that piece, God knows where you would have ended up. And I think that it's important for people to realize that, like, we're all on a journey and we're all given different tools, strengths, and weaknesses. And the people that we aspire to be or we look up to as role models, Like, they have just as many flaws
They're
and
people
things,
too.
and they're doing it. And that's just proof. I always tell people, like, you should look at successful people and see that as proof that anything is possible. Don't look at it as, oh my gosh, I don't have what this person has, because you know what? They don't have what you have to become successful in whatever you choose to do. It's just important for you to ask yourself, like, what do I want to do? Like, there are people out there doing things that you would have never expected, like someone with no arms playing a violin. Like, they wanted to play that violin, and against all odds, like, they were able to do that because that was their goal. Like, it's I never tell people to, like, look at people with disabilities and be like, because look at them doing it, but look at their perseverance
Yeah.
and the things that they are doing, that despite all odds, they are still doing what they're wanting to do in life. And all of us have that capability, because we're all given certain skill sets and certain things that make us amazing. Don't focus on the other things. Like, don't hate
Yeah.
yourself for anything, because that, like, I always tell people, like, the rough things that I've been through shaped me. And when
Yeah.
it comes to what you were saying earlier, like, I would rather work with a coach who said, I was homeless on the street working like out of a box, and now I'm here, than someone who's like, I was born perfect. I was born into, like, and if you want to be like me, here's some advice, because I wasn't born perfect. So how could someone that was born perfect give me advice if they just kind of stepped into their success? Whereas someone who is homeless on the streets, if they somehow made it, then they might have something that I want to listen to, because something pushed them to go from homeless on the streets to being someone that is now giving advice on how to get to where they are in life.
I absolutely agree. And to the person in the chat with your story about your grandmother, I'm so sorry that they said that. And the world is a better place that you have been born, because everybody matters and everybody, contributes in their own way. So, yeah, I don't know. Life is just very interesting, and it's just really important, I think, to just figure it out for yourself. And you're mentioning like successful people. I always like sort of look at them, try to figure out like their journey, and also figure out like what they say. And you'll realize like there's a common thread behind that. And if you really pluck it out, you can sort of follow the same path. And I think a lot of people don't get where they want to go because A, they don't start, they're too afraid to start, and B, they stop too soon because their reason for doing stuff isn't necessarily, I don't want to say the right reason, but it's not a reason that keeps them going long enough, right? So, like, let's say you're like, oh, I want to be an influencer and have like YouTube and stuff. Like, if you're doing it just because you want likes and follows and views, like, maybe you'll get there. Like, if you keep, at it long enough. But if you're doing it because, like, I want to genuinely create content for people, or I want to genuinely put out a message, like, that's what keeps you going on the days when nobody else is watching, and when no days when people aren't following. It's like that purpose. So I always say, like, really take the time. At least for me, what's been really life changing for me is really taking the time to figure out what makes me happy and what my purpose is. And controlling, like you said, even like the little things that you may not want to control, and realizing how that can help you long term. You know what I mean? Like I'm always late, but I also have anxiety, and so it's not like I don't care that I'm late. It just like it adds to my stress that I'm late. So I'm like, if I get places earlier, not only A, will I look better, but B, it's one less anxiety thing I have to deal with. And sometimes you have to like pull out things like that too and be like, okay, what can I fix? What can I change? What little tweaks can I make? Because those little tweaks add up, just like honoring the little happy moments in your life, also figuring out little tweaks you can make a huge difference. And your days won't be peachy keen and everything won't be beautiful all the time, but like it does make the good days even better, and it makes the bad days not as bad.
Yeah. And I think that one thing that we should also point out when it comes to us pointing out what success means, like, we're not talking about just wealth. We're not just talking
Yeah.
about career. Like, for me personally, like, I look up to my mother, because despite all the horrible things that have ever happened to her in life, she still goes out and shows love to every single human being on this planet. And to me, as someone who has gone through the ringer when it comes to people treating you like crap, and like to me, to be able to show love despite the hateful people that try to like stop you from that mission, like I consider that a very successful life to be able to, like, I mean, she will literally still talk to someone and do bend over backwards and do whatever she can for them no matter what they've done to her. And I think that that is a beautiful thing, like, because love is something that, like, you have to be really strong to be able to show that to the world. Love is not something that the weak can do. Like, hate
Yeah.
is so much easier to put out into the world, and it's so weak when someone uses hatred in the world. So, like, to see a mother taking care of her child, and you know what? Like, that, she might not be a millionaire, but that child has a mother that loves it. That's success. Like,
It
those
is.
types of things, like, be aware that what I measure as success will be very different than yours, but that doesn't mean that that is any less success for you. So I think that
Hmm.
people need to realize that success is something that is specific to each individual.
Yeah, and I say that all the time, like, and that's why I always try to add, like, whatever success is to you. Because for some people, it's getting married, having kids, blah, blah, blah. For some, like, for me, it's like being a nomad. Like, I just want to travel all the time and, like, not be around. And some people want to be settled. So it's whatever success looks like to you, and also not judging what other people's success looks like, you know? Because what something is cringeworthy to me might be someone's idea of perfection and, you know, good on them. It's interesting that you talk about your mom because I feel the same way about my mom. Like she had such like a rough life, and like she'll tell me things, and I'm like, how do you not hate people? Like I would be so bitter, or I would be, but she just like she's so kind and she's so helpful. And like for me, as like just my personal marker of success is gonna be when I can retire my mom. Like it's not even like I don't even want like I mean, of course I would love to have like millions of dollars and blah blah blah. Who wouldn't? But for me, like my goal thing is like she's worked so hard her entire life taking care of all of us and her mom. Like I just want her to have some years at home to just hang with the grandkids, you know? So I do like she's my why. Like when we talk about purpose, my purpose is to help people, but then my why is also like I wanna just kinda like say thank you to her and give back to her what she's given to everybody else, you know, her whole life. And I think that helps, you know, in those moments also where you're like, oh, I want to give up, I don't want to do it. And remembering that you're not always doing it just for yourself, I think helps as well.
Yeah, I think that once people realize like the place that they serve, like where you serve in this world, like the person earlier that was saying that like the world would be better off that you weren't here, that is so not true because every single person you've ever interacted with from the day you were born, even if it was just the crying baby in the grocery store, you've impacted lives your entire life. And
Yeah.
that has meant something for every single person that you have contacted, and realizing that you might be the villain in someone's story. And it doesn't mean that you had any bad intentions towards them, but you just played the villain in their story that day. That doesn't make you a villain. It's just in that person's life. And I always tell people it's a reality. Someone who has watched every single positive talk I've ever done is going to have a different reality of who I am as a person versus someone who has watched 5 minutes of one positive talk that I've done. And I think that
Hmm.
it's important for us to all realize that it's a different reality. I'm working on a book right now where I literally talk about in a chapter a really rough part of my life that I experienced, and then I'm having a friend write from their perspective what they saw as a friend for my life at that time. Because just talking to some of my friends, there were days where I felt like I was drowning, like I was not going to make it, that I
Hmm.
just ran out of all energy, all of the answers. I felt like I went down the wrong road and there was no way I could turn back. And my friends were like, wow, like you really inspired me. Like you showed me that like things can like get tough, but you're going to stay on top. And I'm like, that's so crazy to think that some of my worst moments were so
Hmm.
inspiring to other people.
It's interesting when you start to like see, and it's something I've tried to do recently is like see myself more the way other people see me. And I guess like people have always said like certain things. I'm like, yeah, yeah. But I think maybe because also you're the one living through it, right? So your viewpoint is different on it. And then also with things like your talent and stuff, it's just a part of you, so you don't really realize that it's a gift. And sometimes you really have to stop and be like, okay, so this is how people see me, especially when it's positive. Don't do it if it's negative. But when it's like positive and be like, okay, so if this person sees me as that, like, why can't I see myself as that and operate from that space? Like, I think I'm fumbling through this work thing, and everyone else thinks I'm like this boss ass business bitch. Like, oh, let me put that hat on and be from that place, and then you start to feel it and embody it more. And I think sometimes people need to do that as well. Like you said, like you were going through it and you're focusing on the rough part of it, which I'm sure was traumatic, but your friends are so inspired by seeing you get out of that. And I think sometimes we need to focus on that as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that when friends point out things that might be not great qualities of you, uh, if they're a good friend, if they love you, sometimes it's okay to trust that they are seeing something that you might not realize about yourself, because we all have faults. We all have things that can negatively impact the people around us and ourselves. There are things that we can do that self sabotage. And I
Mhm.
think that it's important to realize that there are some people, despite it being a negative comment about you as a person,
Mhm.
uh, maybe it's the advice that you needed to hear. And I think too frequently now in today's world, good friends are kind of pushed to the side until we really need them, because we don't like hearing some hard truths. And
Yeah.
there are definitely people on this call right now that have slapped me with some hard truths, and I was defensive with it. And then I took time to think about it, and I'm like, these people love me. Like, they're not sitting here trying to make me feel bad. They're not trying to make me think that I'm less than. Uh, these people are people who have loved and supported me forever. They're trying to help me grow. And
Yeah.
sometimes the pieces that they try to give you aren't useful, or
Right.
like before, it's a heart shape trying to go into a butterfly. Like,
Yeah.
at this time, you're not going to hear it, but filter through and realize that there are some people that are going to be saying some hard truths that you need to hear. Keep it in a back pocket until like that hole opens up and it fits in there to where you can understand that they were saying it out of love and not out of spite. Because I think that everyone, there are people out there that are horrible, uh, and sometimes just ask questions. Like, if they say something that just makes you feel like crap, be like, how did we get to this conclusion?
Yeah.
Like, what have
Yeah.
I done that you think
Yeah.
that this personal attack that you're saying right now felt like you needed to be said, versus some people, like you said before, just don't understand you or your journey, and they will make comments or judgments that are just throw it away. Don't need it.
Yeah.
Not useful.
Well, and I think that that's where like discernment is important because, like I was saying earlier, like I don't like unsolicited advice. Like that's not to say that like nobody can tell you negative things. It's just like you need to know like when it's coming from. Because I have people in my life who could say like, hey, I noticed this, or hey, like I want to talk to you about that. And depending on what it is and the topic, like I know they know me well enough to like respect my boundaries and that they're helpful. And I feel like that's different also than like someone just giving you negative, because sometimes people aren't even giving you constructive feedback. Like they're literally just saying this negative thing, like I don't like this or I didn't approve of that. Like how is that helpful to me? You just giving your opinion versus like a true friend who would be like, hey, like I noticed this and maybe you could do this or maybe we can talk throughout. Like that I think is important for like growth. And I think it's just important to recognize which, like when negativity comes towards you, it's important to recognize like who is the person that you just kind of dismiss and not take it in because they're just whatever, and who is coming to you from a place of love where you should like think about it. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. And I do that too. Like we also, I think, are very reactionary and get like defensive. So I will rarely react to things right away, especially if it's something negative. I'll say like, okay, thank you. Like, let me think about it. I'll get back to you because I know how I am if I were to react without really thinking about it. And especially now, like with social media and all that stuff, we get very like, have a reaction, have a reaction. And I'm like, it's okay to just pause and just think about things, to take in information, and then make a decision. So especially like if someone gives me like something negative or negative feedback, I had someone do it recently in my DMs, and they're like, "Do you think you should post this person because blah blah blah?" And I wanted to be like, "I'll post what I want on my page," but I was like, I was like, let me think about that. I'll get back to you. And then like I really did think, and I did some research, and I was like, you know what? At first I was gonna say like, nah, it's cool, I can post them. But like I thought about it, and you're right. And based on what I stand for and what I say, like that isn't someone I should have. So thanks for, bringing it to my attention. And sometimes you need to do that. But that pause can save you a lot of like stress, and more people need to pause and have to not say sorry later. I also hate apologizing, so that's part of it. Like I will apologize. I think it's important to apologize, but I hate having to do it. So whenever I can maintain like the higher ground or like come at things rationally so I don't say something crazy I'll have to apologize for later, I do that.
Yeah, I've had moments here recently in my life where friends that have known me for years have helped me see things that I've overlooked about myself, where they're like, "I've seen you for the past 8 years, and have you ever noticed this about yourself?" Or like I was saying before, when it felt like I was drowning and just nothing was going right, like to have a good friend kind of point out, like, hey, like, remember all these times that you've gone through? Like, you're strong. You've done a lot. You
Yeah.
have kicked ass in so many different ways. Like, this is just another one of those times where it feels like you're underwater or it feels like you took the wrong turn, but you've always figured it out before. And sometimes just hearing that from someone that, like, a random person who's looked at my profile on the internet, not going to hear it. I'm sorry. People who have
Mm.
taken years, like hours, when it comes to people who actually take the time to know me and my journey, those are the people I will hear. Whereas someone who just has made a judgment of me on the internet, I'm like,
If they saw
thanks.
you for like 5 seconds and they know your whole life, you're like,
I'm
yeah,
appreciative of that statement you've made, and I will respect that that's your perspective of me. But uh, I know myself a little bit better, and that doesn't coincide with how any of my friends feel about me, or my family, or myself. So
yeah.
that's just not meant to be there. I'm sorry that whatever I did, that's your reality of me. If you would like to stick around, hopefully we can shift that. But if that's your reality and you're dead set on it, there's the door. Thank you for coming
Yeah.
to my show.
And that's the way to deal with it. And I used to get so frustrated, especially because I am big on communication. I used to get so frustrated when I felt like people didn't understand me, and I would like over explain and try to like get them to realize what I really meant and what I was really. And now I'm just like, listen, I said what I said, and you can take it in and realize where I'm coming from with it, or you cannot. But I can't keep putting in the energy to try to make you understand. Like sometimes, of course, if it's someone who's like important to you or like really matters given the situation, I will like clarify if I think there's been a misunderstanding. But if I think I said what I meant to say and you're purposely misunderstanding, then I'm not going to go back and forth with you. And I used to, but now I'm just like, my time is too valuable. That's the other thing with self-love. When you love yourself, you love things like your time and not wasting your time.
Yes.
And you love your peace and not wasting your peace and your happiness and not letting people take away your happiness. Like when you get to more self-love, you want to keep on the good feelings and keep away the bad feelings. And it really impacts how you navigate through life.
Yeah. I think that people who seek validation and love from the world will destroy themselves to try to find it. Whereas if you realize that you have all you need to feel loved and feel validated, like
Mhm.
you start to realize that you have to keep out the things that can destroy that, because there are people who they're going through their own shit and their own traumas, and
Mhm.
like some people prefer to have other people on their level so they don't feel like they're doing it alone, so they will try to hurt other people or make other people feel bad. I mean, there have been several people I've tried to help, and I'm like, hey, like, let's make some life changes. Like, let's take some mind shifts that we can do daily to where we can help you out. And they're like,
Yeah.
you're ugly. You're not as smart as you think you are. Do you
God,
ever
yeah.
realize, and like, they'll throw out insults because they they don't want to come up here. They want to bring you down there, and you
And
can't let them
I
have
always
that.
say, like, if someone is trying to bring you down, they're acknowledging where they are, and not in like a you're better than them, but they're already like down and they're trying to pull you down. So don't let them, like, stay above it.
Yes, 100%. Well, I see that it is getting close to 7:30, which is when my
I'm so
movie
jealous you
starts.
get to see Dear Evan Hansen. Are you seeing the movie, or are you seeing like a play production of it?
Yeah, the movie.
Movie.
I
Okay.
was supposed to see it in theater the weekend Broadway shut down. Like I was
Oh
literally, I had
no.
tickets to go see it. So I'm
Oh
super excited to be seeing it tonight. Doing
yeah.
it by myself because no one
Oh
around here wanted to go with me. But that's okay because I love it enough to where I'm going to enjoy it. This is my happy time. So I'm going to
yeah.
take it and I'm going to love it.
Yes. Well, enjoy it. Let me know how it is. I love me some Ben Platt, so I'm very, very jealous that you get to see it. But enjoy it, and thanks for chatting with me. I always love talking.
Yeah, you are absolutely so amazing. Like I've had people reach out to me before where they're like, "We should start like a series." And like every single time that you and I have talked, I'm like, "She's someone that I would literally like almost like The View. Like I would want
Yeah.
like a show with you sitting there
Oh,
because I just feel like our conversations, like the energy is just like beautiful."
I agree. I agree. I love it. I love that the internet has connected us and brought us together.
Yes. Well, I will
And
let
well,
you
thank you
go.
for having me, and thank you everyone
Yeah.
who watched, and enjoy your show.
Thank you.
I'm going
Have
to
a
go
great
back to
rest of
watching
your day.
mine. I'm watching mine on Netflix. It's because I get really bad with my multitasking. It's hard for me to focus sometimes, so
Yeah.
I'll watch international shows because then I have to put my phone down and focus. So right now I'm into mine. It's this Korean show. It's so good.
That's
So
awesome. It's the
yeah,
nerdy
I'm
side
doing
coming
that.
out.
Yeah, yeah, very much. All right,
Awesome.
well, have fun.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.